I'll just reiterate that I'm going to be at the Lawrence Public Library Tuesday, December 10th, that evening, presenting. And the content will be related to Blue Ink Tears. All right. It'll be a time for us to focus on literacy. I'll be sharing my work, but also doing some Q&A and engaging the audience in some writing so they could develop and share their own work ultimately. But at the end of the day, I just want to say shout out to all my people in Lawrence who are doing great things. Man, I see you. I'm in Tampa, Florida. Been there for the past 3 years, but I'm in touch with what's happening on the ground here. I see my man Stevie at the Tech. Respect the Tech,
Shout out to
doing
Stevie.
great things. I see so many individuals that I'm connected with who are just like doing amazing, amazing work here in the city of Lawrence. And so I'm really enthused about what's happening in Lawrence. I'm really enthused about the businesses that I see developing. I want to shout out to my man Kerm. Kerm,
Shout out to
that's
Kerm.
that's my guy. Whenever I'm around and I need photography, videography, he's always holding me down. And he was also one of my students when I taught at Lawrence High School.
That's what's up. That's what's
So
up.
again, these are the things that bring me joy to see. Like, yo, Kermit used to be, in my honors English class when I taught at Lawrence High School. Now to see what he's doing and building his brand, and I'm loving it. I'm loving all of what I'm seeing from my many many people in Lawrence that I respect who are doing big things.
That's what's up. That's what's up.
Yeah, I'm about my cash, I'm about my cash, I make it rain. I'm about my cash, I'm about my cash, I make it rain. I'm about my cash, I'm about my cash, I make it rain. I'm about my cash, I'm about my cash, I just wanna make some money with a big bag only hundreds. While I sit back and I kick back with my little honey buns. I just wanna ride Mercedes with my homies and my ladies. East Coast out for Lawrence, baby. Don't ever try to play me.
So yeah, like you were saying right there with this is ways to get the check. Welcome people to another episode. I'm kind of excited for this episode. Everything he just mentioned, we haven't even met. It's kind of written right here that I wanted to bring somebody in to educate and talk about ways to get the check, not just way to get money and flip. How most people come out and be like, "Oh, you have this, you could do this and rent this," and but like, nah, we want to be able to be stable and keep going in life and growing.
Absolutely.
Whether it's 9 to 5 or whatever it is, but as long as it's people doing consistent things and going the way up. As you came in, you just mentioned you were an AP at the Gilmet.
That's right.
That's one of my goals right now, to be an AP. So that's pretty cool that you came in. Then you mentioned you're doing some work at the new place I'm at. So it was like, wow, this is crazy.
Yeah, yeah. The
So
Lord
welcome,
will align
man.
it, man. The Lord will align it, and I'm thrilled to hear that one of your goals is to be an AP because we need more males in leadership, but we need more brothers from the community, identifiable role models, and that's actually one of the reasons I pursued it. Because I'm not taking no for an answer, but I also want the people that are coming up who perhaps might be questioning the difficulty of positioning themselves in such a role to know that, like, yo, you could do it because Roberto did it, and I'm not that I'm special. Don't get me wrong, but I'm not that special. We're not that different that like the next man can't do it. I just, by the grace of God, pursued it, maintained the discipline, made sure that I took care of all the credentials, right? Because you don't want people to question you. So, like on paper, you couldn't question me. I had all the credentials.
Everything's done.
Then some of that just comes down to the Lord's favor, but also how do you go about building your network? How do you go about nurturing relationships and leveraging those relationships, and also how do you show up day in and day out in your work? When people always got their eyes on you, right? So when you're in your flow, you're in your workspace or whatnot, especially in the moments in which you think people are not looking, how are you showing up? And are you working to your maximum potential? Are you trying to be the best day in and day out? And for me, what's helped guide my work and my principles is like, yo, I'm trying to do this unto the glory of God day in and day out. I'm not saying I always do. Sometimes I fall. You know, sometimes I fail. I fall short. But that is the aim. Like, yo, I want to do this as if I'm offering this service unto God. So, like, yo, let me try to do it to the max. And I know if I do it to the max, I'm gonna be blessed. The door is gonna open, point blank, period. Then once it does open, you know, it's up to me to like step in there and make sure like I'm walking in with the utmost confidence that the Holy Spirit has positioned me to be in that place on mission. And what's that mission? What's my purpose? And how am I going to engage day in and day out for that particular mission, that particular purpose? And as we're talking about serving young people in schools in particular, that's been, you know, my main work, my main career, my main vocation. For me, it's all about like, yo, how can I reach you, inspire you, challenge you, encourage you, and help you see that you are amazing regardless of the barriers that are in front of you? And how can I support you along the way? Because sometimes people, like, you know, they give good rhetoric, but then they don't give you that, like, the practical help that you need.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm trying to show up and, like, not just give you the gems, but, like, yo, let me help you grab that too.
All right, I feel that. That's where I'm at right now with the credentials. So, like I was telling you, I had 8 years in Lawrence, and things weren't going too well, so I had to look elsewhere. I was actually, one of my longtime dreams was to be a firefighter or work in the courthouse. I always liked the courthouse for some reason. So I signed up for the fireman's exam. I'm 35 years old, like pretty old to be taking that test and trying to start a new career in that level, you know. But then I just went and looked at my credentials, looked at my experience, looked at everything I had. And I was like, wow, I'm like 70, 80% done with all my stuff. Let me go finish that and do what I really desired for and like where my love is really at. You know what I'm saying? I started working in the school system because I was a football coach. And in order to coach football, you need to have the same schedule as the students. Right, it's the easiest way it works.
And you were coaching where?
At Lawrence and Greater Lawrence and Papuana.
That's what's up. It's funny that you say that because coaching basketball is the thing that really pushed me to be an educator.
Okay. Yeah. So you see similar things. And we all have those stories on why we ended up over there. But when you say with your credentials, nobody could play with that, none of that stuff. And that's why I was able to go somewhere else and continue my journey and do what I got to do. So that's for sure, peoples, you know. Get your credentials, have your experience. That's something nobody can take away from you no matter what, no matter where you go. That's yours. You build it. And it's just yours. Take it with you.
It's what it is, man. And props for you to, you know, following that particular path. Because sometimes people think it's a line drive. It's a straight shot. But the path is often winding, you know, and there's a lot of turns and unexpected turns. And you're like, yo, wow, I didn't think I was going to have to pivot like this to get here. But if you allow yourself to go through the process, oftentimes, while in the moment, you might not have the full appreciation. Like, once you get on the other side of it, you're like, oh, now I understand, you know, why I was driven to take that route.
Correct. I feel that. We got right into it, man. Didn't even get to introduce you.
It's all
you know what I'm saying? Who we here with today, man?
Roberto Germán from Multicultural Classroom. I'm from Lawrence, Mass. Originally. Born and raised. I rep it. Hold the banner wherever I go. I've been in Tampa, Florida for the past 3 years. Prior to that, spent 7 years in Texas as a school leader. All types of schools that I've served at. Pre-K through 12th grade, traditional public school, charter school, Montessori school, private school, Catholic school. I've been around, you know. Used to work at Central Catholic High School, Lawrence High School, St. John's Prep, and then, you know, a couple schools in Texas. And for the past several years, been focused on developing my business as an educational consultant. My wife, Lorena Germán, and I, that's what we've been engaged in, supporting schools, school leaders, and other organizations as it relates to implementing culturally sustaining practices.
All right. Did you, by any chance, since when you were back in Lawrence, did you work like at the Y or anything? Or like
I never worked at the Y. I used to be a board member at the Boys Club, the Lawrence Boys Club, the Boys and Girls Club now. Never worked at the Y, but I had strong connections at the Y.
Yeah, no, it's like your face is ringing a bell now that I'm looking at you and stuff. And listening to the things you're saying. I kind of remember you from back then, but not sure from where. Could have been high school, boys club. It could have been any. Yeah, Lawrence is Lawrence.
Could have
Yeah,
been boys club.
but
Could
for
have
sure.
been through my affiliations with Central Catholic or Lawrence High School. Sometimes I used to help Paul Neal out. That was my guy. But I also used to teach English. I started as an English teacher at Lawrence High School.
Yeah, it was definitely in the education system somewhere though.
Yeah.
Like I remember you from there. I don't remember you from like somewhere else. I remember you from either school coaching or something like that in that field. For sure. So you were mentioning a little bit about multi-class culture classroom right now. Can you tell us more about what you do with that and what it is?
Yes, sir. Yeah, we work with schools, nonprofits, for-profits, all types of agency as it relates to implementing culturally sustaining practices. So really, it varies depending on what clients are looking for. But in many cases, we're coming in and supporting organizations with curriculum, taking a look at the curriculum. What are the strengths of the curriculum? What are the areas of development? And in particular, taking curriculum and considering who's your audience, all right? What's being taught? How is it representing your audience? And how are we going about developing global citizens? Are we even going about developing global citizens? Because we often use that language, but sometimes fall short in terms of actually accomplishing that mission. So we do that largely through professional development, but also on the student-facing side of things. I spend time going into classrooms working with students, whether it's through mentoring or through writing workshops. As I mentioned to you earlier, I did some work at the Butler School and Laura Lee Therapeutic School in Lowell last year with 7th and 8th grade students. Also did some work with all of the 9th graders at Lawrence High School, and I'll be back in a few weeks to work with them this year, so I'm excited about that. And really when I come in, there's a strong focus on literacy. But one of my hopes is that through my work and through the content that I present them, that they will be inspired to write and use writing as a tool to voice themselves, use writing as a tool to heal. And for those who want to really push themselves to start developing themselves as writers who could even potentially monetize their writing.
Okay. And when you say that, this is just straight for the students, or do you come and help out?
I work with all different types of audiences. Sometimes I'll come in and do some work with teachers. A lot of the work I've been doing in the past year has been with students and has been centered around themes in my book, Tears, and this copy's for you, my brother.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
For sure.
And so been going in there and addressing themes for the book, themes that deal with relationships, love, grief, justice, identity, so on and so forth. But in other cases, I'll go into environments. For example, when I come back in a few weeks, I'll be going to Esperanza Academy and addressing the families. And I will be addressing them on the theme of fatherhood. Okay. Which is an important topic in our community. And so I want to talk about the importance of fathers in the household, the importance of making sure that fathers are included in the educational process, because we want to be present. We want to be included. We want to know what's going on with our children. And oftentimes there's a default, to just go to the mothers and, the mothers loop them in. And sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. But we got to do a better job in terms of really being inclusive on that front and making sure that the fathers are just as much part of the process as the mothers are.
Okay. So just a little bit, what inspired you to be a writer? Did it just come naturally, or just jotting down things, or you always felt that way, or was it maybe later on?
The inspiration behind my writing really, it just started with a tragedy. When I was in 7th grade, I got too tall. Jose Hernandez, he was walking home in the Arlington area with his cousin. He had a bike. The dude tried to rob him for his bike. He wouldn't give it up. Dude shot him. Too Tall was in the hospital, and my basketball coach, Steve Kelly, asked me to write a poem to uplift his spirits. We were all connected through the Boys Club. Okay. And so I didn't necessarily see myself as a writer at that time, but I had mad love for Steve. I had love for Too Tall. Felt bad for the situation. Let me try to write something to uplift his spirits. And that was the event that really got me going. By the grace of God, Tuto survived, but unfortunately, there were other things that happened along the way. You know, like a couple years later, my man Dookie, Louis Dookie LeBron, he got shot and killed on Lawrence Street. He stole a car radio. You know, dude came out, shot him in the back, and so I left the boarding school. I went to St. George's when I was ninth grade. I was a baller, and I left with that. Like that happened 2 weeks before I left. So,
Okay.
you know, tragic situations that were occurring, and for me, writing became a way to deal with tragedy, to deal with trauma, to deal with pain. It became my resource, it became my outlet, and I'm grateful for that because, you know, I had moments where like I wasn't resourcing to the writing, and then oftentimes what we do is we hold it in, especially as men, hold it in, hold it in, hold it in. It's gonna find its way out, you know, one way or another. And oftentimes, you know, for us, it might come out in violent ways, whether it's like, you know, we're getting verbally aggressive or maybe physically aggressive. You know, I remember I had times where I was like punching windows in my dorm, just because like everything, it was just too much. Yeah. And I wasn't in counseling or nothing like that. I wasn't processing this stuff. So writing became my mode of being able to release and being able to reflect and being able to process the things that I was dealing with that was really heavy on my heart and mind. And then, you know, it also allowed me to really capture other moments, not just these tragic moments, but to capture positive moments, to capture moments of different relationships I was engaged with, and how I felt about certain individuals, and capture how I felt about relationships, my relationship with the game of basketball, for example. And I even have a piece in my book about that called Found Her. So, you know, thankfully, writing became a tool. It became a resource. It became a way for me to express. And ultimately, you know, it helped me also to do some other things, to achieve some other things in my life through being able to communicate well with my writing.
All right. Now that's cool. I asked too because like something's telling me to like become a writer, which is crazy because so following sports and football especially, and I started having coached for 3 years since COVID. I've been just following and watching games. I go to different games every Friday, and I write about it on Facebook a lot. Everybody's been tagging the Eagle Tribune, like, yo, if you get this guy to write, I'll buy a copy. I've been tagging them and just been posting it every week. I've been doing it, and random people hit me up. Oh, I like what you wrote, you know. So I don't feel like I was ever the best like writer and stuff like that. Like I don't know, but it's just something I have love for in the game, and it keeps me around it still. Like next year, I want to start broadcasting them, going to the games, interviewing the players before the week and stuff like that, the matchups, game of the weeks, and keep writing about it and just keep going with that for, you know,
that's dope.
For fun and thing.
I love it. I think that when you have a passion for something, you have a desire for something, it doesn't matter if you're the, you know, quote unquote best at it, right? To me, what matters is that you are harnessing that passion, and because people could connect with that. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have to be the best writer in the world, but like if they feel the passion that you're conveying through your work, you know what I'm saying? Like, they're gonna be able to connect with that. The technical aspects of things you could always work on, you could always develop, right? Like, there's all types of courses and YouTube videos and this and that or whatever, and it's just like, all right, practicing the craft. But half the time, like, we don't do the things that we dream of because we're stuck on, like, we're dealing with the imposter syndrome. Like, yo, I don't know, you know, like, I'm not that good at this, or this person's better than that, or like, yo, nah, man, like, don't worry about this person, that person, their opinion. No, go do the thing that God has put in your heart to do. Do it to your maximum ability, and you know, let the Lord do the rest. And however people respond. And obviously, like, you know, you take the good, leave the bad. Wherever you receive feedback that's going to be constructive and help you grow, then you apply it. But I'm encouraged to hear that, man, especially as somebody who loves sports, somebody who used to coach, somebody who writes, man. I want to see people in all different types of lanes. So
Yeah.
I'm feeling that. As a matter of fact, there's a dude who lives out in the area where I'm at in Tampa. He lives in St. Pete. He reached out recently because he's like, "Yo, man, I'm kind of sick of Stephen A. Smith and First Take." I'm like, "Yo, me too, man. What's up?" He's like, "Yo, let's start something. Whoever's serious, holla at me." And I got at him. He's like, "Nah, if you see," I'm like, "Yo, man, you see, I'm not playing. Like, let's go. I'm ready." And so we're in the process of starting our own show, and yeah, man, like I I don't know how ultimately how it's gonna pan out, but like that's also the exciting part of the process and the journey is that like that all right, we're going into the unknown. Who knows, man? You know what I'm saying? But like I'm never going into this thinking like it's not gonna be great. Always like, yo, it's gonna be the best. Because I'm gonna as long as I'm enjoying it and maximizing the potential, I think it's gonna be the best. And hopefully it even surpasses my expectations.
Correct, and whatever happens from there happens. But as long as you're enjoying every moment, that's
absolutely.
And I want to come back to your book. And
yes,
stuff.
sir.
I want to definitely look at it. So this is a collection of poems. You just have a bunch of different poems in it.
Yeah. It's Blowing Tears. It's a basically, man. It's chronicling my experience over the past 20 years through poetry. Some through poetry, some through song form. And I think for the writers out there, when you read it, then you'll be able to tell. He's like, oh yeah, this is definitely meant to be a song. Like I think this, you put a beat on this, this is gonna have a bop.
Okay.
So I wanted to bring my authentic self as a writer into my book. So I explored different types of genres of poetry. Free verse, haiku, sestina. But for a lot of people that have known me and familiar with my work over the years, they know that one distinct aspect of my style is like performance poetry. That it's like, yeah, you could read it and still feel it and connect with it. But when you hear me in person, there's gonna be a little something extra. You're gonna feel it on another level. So, for those of you that have not engaged with my work in person, I want you to know that besides doing the work here at Lawrence High School in Esperanza in a few weeks, in the second week of December, I will also be doing a presentation at the Lawrence Public Library. It's going to be free to the public. Invite you all to come out. It's going to be the second week of December, that Tuesday, which I believe is the 10th, that evening. So we'll be having flyers up soon. Looking forward to engaging with the community.
All right, and that's an all-age event?
All-age event, absolutely. Absolutely. The poetry is very accessible. Now, obviously, for the little kids, it's probably going to be over here. But I ain't going to be saying nothing crazy. So you come with the little kids.
Yeah, that's why I asked, in case, you got to bring them. They could probably go read a book.
They'll be good. I ain't going to say nothing crazy.
Okay. Now that's what's up. Just flipping through this real quick. I can't wait to read it and go through them. I like the images you have in there. And
I wanted to take a different approach. For me, it was also important with my first book. I'll tell you like this. It sold units, but for me, it was never about like how much money I made off the book. Like this was on my heart and mind for 20 years. And I tried to do it. Wow. I tried to do it years ago. Like when I was in college at Merrimack, I tried to make it happen. But I didn't have the resources. I didn't have the insight. I didn't have somebody who was giving me the gems to really put me on to make it happen. And so I kept pumping the brakes. And I'm glad I did because, like, once I put it out, I was like, yo, I was completely at peace with it. I'm like, yo, this could sell one copy and I will be good because I said what I had to say. Now, it sold much more than one copy. But the point is, like, it was really about me conveying the things that I was holding, the things that I was writing, the things that I was capturing for the past 20 years. And the book ends with a couple pieces about my father who died before I published the book. Like, he died months before I published the book. But I thank God because I was able to capture those moments and really sit down and think about his character and his impact, not just in my life, but in the life of many, and add that to my book. And so I'm glad it came out when it did, because it was also a way for me to honor my father's legacy.
Amen. I see that. I also see you have café con leche in here. You
Yeah.
brought some things, shoes,
Sabes, representando
zapatos.
la
I like it. I
cultura.
like it. Yeah, I like that you're bringing all that in there. Mosquito, that's culture right there.
Yeah.
So that's cool. So everything you put is in English and then in Spanish, or
Not everything.
or the ones that relate to the culture.
There's certain pieces. There's certain pieces that are either translated. Like here's this version, like shoes is in English, but then I did the Spanish version, zapatos, and you have to read it to understand the message that's being conveyed there. But it's a metaphor. There's other pieces, like Café con Leche. It's not a translated poem. It's a bilingual poem.
Okay.
And it represents me well. But there's another piece titled Lengua, and that also represents well the language diversity. And even sometimes like the language challenges, like, because I think in English first and Spanish second. I know for other people it's reverse, and there'll be certain things that, like, que solo me llega en español, and other things that just comes to me in English. And so I wanted to capture the duality, the being bilingual and bicultural. I even see, like, on one of your episodes, I forgot who you were with, but you had asked him for something. There was a certain term you asked him for, machucate, and the dude corrected you, and then you had said, like, sometimes, like, certain. I don't know if you remember what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it was the shoe one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that stuff, that's real for us, right? Like, that's how we experience life. We engage in our society and whatnot. And so I wanted to capture that, because I think there's a lot of people that can relate to that. But even for the people that can't necessarily relate to that experience, then I wanted to give them some insight.
Okay. Yeah, and I hear that. I mean, and that comes with me, like, being bilingual. And when it comes to speaking and out loud and in presentations, meetings, whatever, that's where I get stuck, because, like, I was born in New York, but I was sent to Dominican Republic until the age of 7. Okay. So then came back over here. So, like, it's like my Spanish never developed that well, but then my English started late. So I'm like a little mix in the middle. So, yeah, so I take it from there and stuff like that, But it's all good. So how important are book reviews to you? Like, you think that's important?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah. Book reviews are critical. Okay, and to be honest with you, a lot of these things, like you were saying when I first got in here, that with everything you've been doing in terms of your experience with your business and content creation, like, you're learning as you go.
Yep.
I took the same approach with not just writing a book, but also publishing a book, because I published this through my company, Multicultural Classroom. Now, we've worked with publishers before. We got great relationships with publishers. Lorena's second book or third book is through a publisher. Her book Texture Teachings through a publisher. So we have that experience, but as much as possible, try to create content that we completely own, and I know you understand that. So book reviews, I ended up learning, are huge. They're essential to be able to not just push the algorithm, but to bring more attention to your book. It's like anything else. A lot of people shop on Amazon. I'm sure, you probably shop on Amazon. Mm-hmm. I shop on Amazon. And when I go to buy something, like, when I see that, like, these sneakers got, 1,000 reviews, but the sneakers you're wearing now got 10,
No, yeah, for sure.
It might tip the scales in terms of, like, I'm going to lean in this direction. Or whatever, name the product. You got all these nice cameras in here and all this wonderful equipment.
Yep. Definitely a lot of reviews.
You did some research,
of course.
And, like,
see what other people use.
No, okay. This camera broke down quickly, or this company's not good in providing this type of support. Like, so it's kind of the same thing when it comes to authorship and publishing a book. You want to make sure you get a decent number of reviews. They tend to say that, like, you want to have a standard of at least 75 to 100, especially initially. You could get those reviews up front, that definitely will help you. It should be part of your launch strategy.
All right, all right. And how do you take those reviews? Like looking at them as you go through. Do you
Yeah,
sit down and read all of them, or is like how does that go?
I read a lot of them, man. I got receipts. Get that eagle. I think at first there's a natural inclination to read a review and like let it affect you either way, right? Like
Hmm.
get mad hype off of positive reviews, or you can kind of get down on yourself, mad or frustrated over negative reviews. Over time, because we've published several books, I've just learned to just receive it for what it is and take the good, leave the bad. Everybody ain't gonna connect with the work. For some people, it's gonna hit. They're gonna love it. For some people, like I've read some of my reviews where people say like, "Yo, it's cool," but like I'm not really into poetry, or this seems like it would be better if it's performed in person. And I'm like, "Yo, that's good feedback. I received that." And even as I just told you, I'm like, some of my work, you gotta hear it live. Now you gotta come out when I do the events. You know what I'm saying? Like, or you gotta bring me as a speaker, right? And listen, there's no shortage of opportunities to bring me in as a speaker. Now, you are going to pay me for my services, but, at the end of the day, I read the reviews now, and I'm just like, all right, cool. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't really sweat it too much one way or another. I don't get my high school basketball coach, Dick LaCar, used to say, don't let the highs get too high or the lows too low. And I keep that. That's always stuck with me. It stuck with me when I was a player. Then when I started coaching ball, that stuck with me. And then just like as I moved on, and the different things that I've done as a school leader and as author and this and that, like that notion of like, yo, don't get too high or too low, man. Like be even keel, keep it cool, celebrate the victories, and sometimes you're gonna get feedback that doesn't feel good, that you don't really want to receive. If it's constructive, I'll receive it and I apply it if it makes sense. But if it's not, then it is what it is. I just keep it
Just
pushing.
keep going from there.
Yeah.
We in movies we always see like the struggling author, like what he's gonna do for his next one and it's things like that.
Yeah.
How do you experience? Have you been through that? Like you felt like one was better than the other, or like your first one was the one, and then you haven't got to do one again, or
This
you
is
get stuck?
this is my first book and my only book out right
Okay,
now.
okay.
I've put out other writing. I've contributed. So, for example, my friend Tiffany Jewell, she has a book out. Everything I learned about racism, I learned it in schools. Lorena and I both are contributing writers to that book.
Okay.
The book is doing extremely well. She's a New York Times best-selling author. Like, yo, she's winning, I'm winning. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
that's what's up.
we contributed to Britt Hawthorne's book, Raising Anti-Racist Children. That book was on a New York Times bestseller. She's winning, I'm winning. So, like, we got some major victories. But in terms of, like, art products and whatnot, my wife Lorena has put out several books, and with most of those books, I've been behind the scenes doing all the work to make sure that like all of the things that go into putting a book out happen. She writes the content. I deal with designer, formatter, editor. You know, making sure I'm working everything through Amazon KDP or Ingram Spark or all the companies, making sure it's all on different platforms, marketing plan, all of that. So there's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes to help make a book that oftentimes people don't realize, and that's just important as writing the book. But, to answer your question, like as a writer, I'm just like, all right, this is the one book I'm pushing right now. I have several manuscripts that I'm sitting on that I'm strategizing around in terms of like, all right, how we gonna make this happen? What's gonna be the best move? So, for example, I have a couple manuscripts that are for picture books, children's books.
Okay.
We could put it out ourselves. However, we're not gonna be able to put out the type of product that we want to see for that type of book because it requires illustrations. You got to pay a lot more for an illustrator, and so as I mentioned earlier, we're trying to do things unto the glory of God. So I'm like, yo, if we can't put out the quality picture book that like we really want to receive, all right, this would be an opportunity to go with a publisher. So right now it's more about like, all right, let me just keep reviewing, do a little more research, do a little touches on the manuscript before we actually submit it to the publisher. But I got a couple publishers who are waiting. Like, yo, you say you working on this. I just want to make sure, yo, you still doing it. Like, because when you're ready, we want you to send it to us. Thank God we're at that place now where we have such good relationships with the publishers for a number of different reasons. One, because I'm a podcast host and I interview a lot of authors, and the publishers like, I'm basically helping their brand, helping the work, right? So they appreciate that, but also we have some contracts in which we do some work with them, for them, in terms of creating guides to accompany some of the books that their authors publish. So for me, it's really about like finding the right approach, finding the right strategy. But I'm also not like living off of the book itself. While the book creates some revenue and royalties, the book is not the main driver. So I'm not like the people in the movies or even the people in real life who like they're sweating because like this is literally their bread and butter. This is not. We got a lot of things going on.
All right. Nah, and I bet that takes a bunch off of it because that's what you're living off. Then it's like more pressure, more thing to make it better. And I think that's where the struggling will come because you're trying to be better than what you are when you're already good. If that kind of makes sense, You mentioned publishing and authors, and can we take it back a little bit?
Yeah.
Obviously, I would like to get educated more and educate the listeners exactly what a publisher is, because if you're not in that world, we're not really gonna know about that stuff.
Yeah, so there's a number of different ways that you can go about publishing a book, that you can go about putting a book out into the world. So again, writing the book is one step in the process, but then you actually have to put the book out. You got to publish it. And so for a long time, the only way to really go about making that happen was going through a traditional publisher. You go to a publishing house, you send your manuscript, maybe you have an agent, maybe you don't. But basically you get one of these big companies to pick up your manuscript and, get them to give you a contract to publish it. Okay. You'll come to some type of agreement. Like, hey, we'll pay you X percentage, and maybe they'll pay you some money up front. And if they don't, then it's like royalties on the back end. Once your book is out, they recoup, their investment, and now you start making X percentage. So for a long time, that was the way, but things have changed, and thankfully, there's a lot more access for people to make things happen. So there's hybrid approach, where you could go with a hybrid, with a publishing company that does hybrid, where it's like, they'll do certain aspects of the publishing process, and then you'll do certain aspects of the publishing process. And because you're kind of doing half of it, then you're getting a lot more revenue. And then there's, you could just self-publish, publish the book yourself, create an account on Amazon KDP or Ingram Spark or one of these other platforms, create your design. Maybe you use Canva or a platform like Canva to create some illustrations or whatnot. All right, boom, I got my book cover. Or you pay somebody, find somebody on Fiverr or Upwork, outsource the work, have them create that, have them format the book, you do all the writing. Oh, here, I need it to be formatted. And then you go about, you create your profile on the Amazon KDP, on the Ingram Spark, and then you put the book out yourself. So that's I'm simplifying it. Obviously, there's a lot more details.
But I get what you're saying.
Publishing, but like those are the three main ways that folks go about publishing these days: traditional publisher, hybrid publishing approach, or self-publish. But at the end of the day, I'm always encouraging people like, yo, you got a voice. Your voice matters. You have a story. Your story is unique. And nobody's going to tell your story like you. Get it out. Get it out. Put your story out there. I want to see as many people writing books and publishing books as possible, because I want us to control the narrative, man.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I want us to control the narrative. That's one of the reasons I keep writing. the notion of combating what people say about us, and now I'm specifically talking to my Lawrence people, right? There's a piece in here called City of Promise. I wrote that in response to the article that was published years ago. I think it was like 2013, titled City of the Damned.
City of the Damned. I remember that.
Right? Because I'm like, oh, that's what y'all saying. That's what they saying about Lawrence? Nah, but that's not the Lawrence that we know. Right? And even if there are some truths embedded in some of what was said there, right? Because we're not going to turn a blind eye to some of the challenges that we experience and witness in Lawrence. But we know that the Lawrence that we rep is much more than that. And it's a richer Lawrence than what's conveyed through the media. So I'm like, yo, I'm not allowing y'all to drive the narrative. I'm going to own the narrative myself. And that's why I put out the piece City of Promise. That's why I published my book. We got to be the alternative voice. We got to be the voice. You know, that's why I don't even really tap into some of these media sources, because I don't like the way they depict us. I'm like, let's do it ourselves. We're going to tell our own stories.
I respect that, for sure, for sure. So where does your motivation come from? What keeps you motivated, keeps you going?
Yeah, that's great. So my primary source of motivation is my faith, my relationship with the Lord. It guides my footsteps. Everything I do, as I mentioned, I try to do it unto the Lord. And so just being grounded in my faith helps me to maintain this sense of purpose, to get up and do whatever I have to do every day to shine a light in my community, shine a light in this world, and then certainly my family, you know, my investment in my family and being a great husband and receiving the wonderful support that I received from my wife, Lorena, my 3 children who are 9, 6, and 3, Annalise, Zion, and Saul. It's like I'm doing a lot for them, right? Because I want them to live in a better world. I want them to have more opportunities than I had. I want to be able to equip them and guide them to be able to just do all kinds of amazing things. So that's my duty as a father. My responsibility to pour into them, to love them, to grow them, to challenge them, to expose them to all types of opportunities, to ground them in their faith. That's my duty. And then certainly I get a lot of motivation and inspiration from my community. And it always starts with Lawrence. It extends beyond Lawrence because, you know, we're in community and wherever we're dwelling, whatever space we're dwelling. So, you know, while I don't live in Lawrence anymore, and I used to live in Austin, Texas, I don't live there anymore, but I have community in these places, and now I'm building community in Tampa, Florida. And so I'm always thinking about, you know, how can I invest in my community? How can I make my community better? And also, how can I take from the community? How can I receive to enrich my life and the life of my children? So community definitely inspires me in seeing people who are doing wonderful things. I mentioned to you that I saw Wilkes was on the show. Yep. Wilkins Victor, that's my guy. We grew up together. We played ball together. I saw he was on the show, and so when I see folks like that and what they're doing, when you know their stories, right? I know Wilkins' story. I know what it came from. I know some of the challenges that he experienced. So to see him doing what he's doing now, I'm like, wow. It brings joy to my heart. Jackson Garcia was the one that connected us. That's my
Shout out
brother.
to Jackson.
You know, that's my brother since 1996. We were also roommates first year of college. We've been through a lot together. And so, you know, when I see individuals like Jackson who is in school leadership, who I know pours into the children, loves the children, challenges the children, grows the children, helps them to maximize their potential. And also, Jackson's a giver. He's an individual that helps a lot of people. You know, you and I didn't know each other before this interview, right? But Jackson sought to make it happen. He thought it had to happen. He plugged in, he tapped into this, and like, yo, this would be great. Both of y'all would benefit from it. So, you know, when I see people moving in that fashion, right? moving with integrity, thinking about others, giving to others, building something great, bringing people along. That inspires me. You know, what Wilkins is doing inspires me. What Jackson is doing inspires me. What you're doing, even though I don't know you, you know, like I checked out your page. I did a little research. I see how you came up. I know you were inspired by Nicky Jam's story, and that's how you got the name for Fend Studios. And so that stuff inspires me, man. I'm like, wow, that's dope. Like to see that, yo, you know, this thing that you connected with drove you to take those next steps to invest. I see you have an investment going on here.
Sure.
I love it, man. And I know how hard it is. Like people don't know the grind that it takes to do what you're doing. And sometimes they may see it as algo sencillo, right? Like, nah, man. Like, none of this is simple. It takes
that's why I always
sacrifice.
ask. I make sure I always ask that question, that motivation, where it comes from, because especially like you said, you know what, you were over here in leadership and trying to do all that stuff and giving back to the community so much, but you could only do so much because there's always higher ups. That knock things down, make you lose the love for a lot of things. But people like you just mentioned, Wilkes, yourself, I just met you, Jackson. There's a lot of people that are out here that do it for the right reasons, that makes you want to keep going and still, you know, like I was telling you, I'm in Louisville now. It feels like I'm not home. Part of something been missing, but I'm still enjoying it. But I always want to give back over here, even though it gets taken away a lot. You know what I'm saying? So to find that motivation to keep going is always kind of difficult.
Yeah, you know, I went through that, and I started to understand things a little differently. We're Lawrence wherever we go. And wherever we go, we make a great impact. And so if the Lord has you in Lowell, then God bless. The Lowell community is blessed by it, but, like, you're just an extension. You know what I'm saying? So, like, people there get to see Lawrence in a different light because you're there.
Facts.
And, like, once I started to understand that, then I was at peace with the fact that, like, yo, I'm not here. It's all good. Also, I trust that there are still, even in my absence, that there are great people in Lawrence who are doing great things, and even greater things than I was doing than when I was here. When I was here, I gave it my everything. And sometimes you got to know when it's time for you to pivot. You know what I'm saying? Like, you just got to be obedient to the call and what's next. And what's next is not always like what you have in mind or how you think it should go. It could be something completely unexpected, as was my case when I ended up moving to Austin, Texas. Like, yo, before I got there, never in 1,000 years I would have thought I ended up in Texas. And I had my own, like, biases and stereotypes about, like, Texas and what that would be like or whatever until I got there. And I'm like, oh, snap. It's not like all the things that we were joking about. You know what I'm saying? Nah, it's, like, different. So, like, then I used to hear people make all types of jokes and, like, they say, like, ignorant stuff. And I'm like, yo, y'all are so foolish, man. Like, yo, come down here so you can see for yourself what it's like. So we could dismantle some of these stereotypes that we have.
Word. Before I wrap it up, I always ask if I forgot anything that you wanted to come out here and mention and stuff. It was kind of quick. You just was chatting.
I'll just reiterate that I'm going to be at the Lawrence Public Library Tuesday, December 10th, that evening, presenting. And the content will be related to Bluing Tears, all right? It'll be a time for us to focus on literacy. I'll be sharing my work, but also doing some Q&A and engaging the audience in some writing so they could develop and share their own work ultimately. But at the end of the day, I just want to say, shout out to all my people in Lawrence who are doing great things. Man, I see you. I'm in Tampa, Florida, been there for the past 3 years, but, you know, I'm in touch with what's happening on the ground here. I see my man Stevie at the Tech, respect the Tech,
Shout out to Stevie.
Doing great things. I see so many individuals that I'm connected with who are just, like, doing amazing work here in the city of Lawrence. And so I'm really enthused about what's happening in Lawrence. I'm really enthused about the businesses that I see developing. I want to shout out to my man Kerm.
Shout out to Kerm.
That's my guy. You know, whenever I'm around and I need photography, videography, He's always holding me down, and he was also one of my students when I taught at Lawrence High School.
That's what's up. That's
so
what's up.
again, these are the things that bring me joy to see. Like, yo, German used to be, my honors English class when I taught at Lawrence High School. Now to see what he's doing and building his brand, and I'm loving it. I'm loving all of what I'm seeing from my many people in Lawrence that I respect who are doing big things.
That's what's up. That's what's up.
And I just want to encourage you. I want to encourage you to keep going, man. Keep going with what you're doing. I'm eager to see what your brand is going to look like a year from now, 3 years from now. What's going to be new, what's going to be different, how it's going to grow, and know that you got a supporter in me and Multicultural Classroom from a distance.
I appreciate that for sure. Better get writing right now. Nah, for sure, man. Everybody says I do a bunch of things. Like, I'm all over the place, but once I'm locked in with something that I really want to do, I just do it. That's what it is.
Yes, sir.
And it's not like I try things and throw things out. I just keep adding to it and keep adding to my resume. Then my family makes fun of me that I have a million hats.
Yeah.
My resume's crazy. If I was to really put everything down, I don't need a book. I just do a bunch of stuff and keep going from there, It's just, it's what it is. We got the time on us, well.
Some people got that gift to be able to, come up with all these different ideas, man. And, man, don't lose that, man. Don't lose your enthusiasm for being a creator, for being an innovator, for coming up with all these ideas. And, I guess I want to say, not just as an encouragement to you, but encouragement to our listeners, is give yourself grace to experience. And not just to experience the good, but to experience failure along the way. Yep. Even though that might not feel good, if you give yourself license to fail, you're going to give yourself license to succeed.
I like that. For sure. There's a bunch of times I don't want to take, I don't know if I should get a bell or something, because, I don't know, in Drink Champs, in Norian, they start clapping. It was mad shit you mentioned, man, with some peace, with your pop stuff, things you mentioned about Lawrence. Bug. There was just so many things that you've been saying, even that how you just ended it right there. I just want to clap over while you're talking, but I need to come up with my own thing. So I might get a bell, my son. I don't know. I got to figure that part out.
I'm not weed out.
Yeah, that's true. The person talking is going to be like, what? What's happening right now? That's a good one. Probably do that, That's an idea right there. I like it. Appreciate you for coming, man. I'm going to be at that. I'm going to pull up to that on December 10th, you said?
I'm going to send you the flyer.
Send me that. I'm going to make sure I repost it and put it up there. Show that love.
Tuesday, December 10th. I'll send you the flyer once it's done. Again, it's going to be a free event for the community, bilingual presentation, so come through.
I'm definitely going to be there. All right, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me once again. I appreciate you coming. Yes, sir.